So Maria, an improvement from 460 to 710. How was the feeling when you got that 710 on your screen?
Like honestly, it's kind of funny because when I got to 710, I didn't know where to accept the score because up until this point I always canceled every score, so I was kind of nervous of like missing it. So I was pretty excited, but I also it took me quite some time to understand and believe that it actually happened. Like I think even now I'm sometimes I'm like, okay, is it really true? I don't have to
Let me
study this
pinch myself
anymore.
and see that this really happened.
Yeah, sometimes I look at the picture of it and I'm like, oh yeah, this really happened. So it was quite weird.
It's really an inspiring story. As I was telling you earlier, like there are many people who get demotivated by seeing poor scores. They kind of give up. But your story is a story of perseverance, and then I'm pretty sure that anyone who is watching this interview and is actually stuck with a score for quite some time is gonna get super duper motivated after hearing you. So let's start from the very beginning. Let's talk about how did that thought of GMAT came to your mind, and like what did you do to start with?
Yeah, so basically my boyfriend did the GMAT and I kind of watched him doing it. And like after he was done, I kind of thought, okay, maybe doing a MIM or like now my idea is doing an MBA, but back then it was doing a MIM. I was like, okay, this could actually be something for me. And we looked at it and it was kind of funny because he had struggles with verbal mostly, and we were kind of had an idea that I would be maybe even better than him, and we thought it would be the smooth process of already seeing how it works. And
Mhm.
yeah, I kind of got the idea of doing it back then from seeing him doing it basically.
Okay, okay. So you
Mm.
got the idea from him, and it was MIM which you were targeting earlier. So how did you start your prep? Like, did you take his help? Did you take a course? Like, how did you go about your prep initially?
Yeah, I think I think this is basically how failure starts because we just like both of us overestimated like my level. We thought like math would be okay, maybe a bit tough, but verbal we thought would be great, and that's why I kind of just started studying with his stuff, but not like normal books. I just started with his Manhattan material right away, like with the hard questions,
Okay,
and
directly with the hard questions.
yeah, like basically I just ran through the like super hard stuff, and I mean at the end of the day I didn't understand much of it. I just went through it again and again and again. And I mean it was terrible, but I thought, okay, this is a very hard test, so this is probably the hard part now, like going through this terrible stuff and just, walking through it a couple of times. And yeah, probably the outcome of this was not very beneficial for me because I got super demotivated.
Okay.
And what I didn't do in the beginning is I didn't do like a starting mock, what people suggest you doing a mock in the beginning and seeing your level.
Mhm, mhm.
I never did that actually. So I started with the Manhattan prep, but only with the like I think it's books, but he had it like printed out like on paper.
Okay.
So I started with this right away, and then yeah, after a while I realized, okay, this is not working. And then I think I did a mock, I'm not 100% sure, but then I bought basically the Economist prep as well because I realized, okay, I need something different too. I
Mhm.
thought maybe as a combination, so then I bought the Economist prep, and this is also I think where I did my first mock. Yes, this is where I did the first one.
Okay, okay. And like the score that 460 that you got was an actual GMAT or like was on the mock test itself?
Yeah, so that was also kind of a weird phase because I got like on the Economist one, I think I got a four something. It was 470 maybe. Yeah, I think it was 470 or 480.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went ahead and said, okay, maybe I'm that low because it's not an official mock. So maybe let's try an official one. So
Mm-hmm.
then I did an official one online and I got a 550.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And still to this day I don't know why I got a 550, but it happened, and I attached to this. I thought, okay, I'm at the 550. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get a 650, so I
Okay.
thought, okay, I'm not that far anymore. And then I started for a couple of weeks more, and then I did a real one, like an appointment, and this is where I got the 460,
Okay.
like for the official one.
Okay. And I know like you want to forget that 460 altogether that ever happened, but do you remember like what was the quant and verbal split in that one? Like,
I can tell you because I did screenshots. So the first one was, it was 460, it was quant 29 and
okay.
verbal 23.
Okay. Okay. And you
Yeah.
of like English, right? In,
Sorry.
you're from Austria, right? So you're a non-native speaker of English. Like that was not your
Yes, I'm
first
from
language
Austria.
in
No, no, it's not my first language. I mean, I did work in the US for like half a year, so
Mhm.
that's why initially we thought, oh, English might not be that big of a problem, but it's just, I mean, the test is just so different from just, being able
Hmm.
to speak the
Speak.
language. So
Yeah.
that's just what I realized.
So how did you like botch up the courage to take the GMAT once again? Like after that 460, what did you do next?
I mean, back then it wasn't that bad because I kind of, since I got this 550 once, this was
Hmm.
kind of the only score that I wanted to believe, basically.
Okay.
The other ones, I was like, yeah, it was just, whatever, a bad day, or I didn't want to believe them, basically. So I had this
Okay.
550 once, and I was like, okay, this is something I can build upon, I just need to study a little bit more, a little bit more. And then back then, this is kind of where I already missed like the first row of deadlines for MIM.
Okay.
But I thought, okay, it's not too bad. I can postpone it a little bit. I wasn't in no like time pressure in terms of like work or anything. So that's why it made it a bit flexible for me.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I continued studying because I thought, okay, like again, I can build on this 550 and it's gonna be fine. Like only 100 points more and I'm there basically.
Hmm.
And I think that was also like one big mistake. I was kind of like, I didn't want to look at my errors too much. I was trying to keep myself positive and motivated. So I was again like this 550 was this one thing I wanted to see. And then yeah, I just continued, which was okay. I got up to I think my best one was then 620, and then I got a 640 once
Okay.
and a mock. Yeah, and then I thought, okay, I'm basically there.
Hmm.
And then I did my official one, and I got like an appointment, and I got a 580.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that was when I was about to give up. Like I could tell, okay, this could be the turning point now, because I thought, okay, now I've been doing this for so long. Now I'm only 30 points above this like 550 that I had back then. Like, what am I doing here?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's when I got in contact with you, basically, because I realized, like, if I continue doing this by myself, I might stop. Like I was very close to stopping at this point.
So by this time, like you had spent how many months in your prep? Like how many months for into like,
Well, this must have been then like nearly a year, I would say, because
nearly a
it
year?
was I think
Okay.
around September, October when we got in contact, and I started in around January, like after Christmas or something.
Okay.
So nearly
Hmm.
nearly a year, yeah.
So if you've spent a year on it and you don't see that improvement, that definitely is demotivating. I like that idea though, that you actually baseline that 550. I understand that like not looking at your lower scores also is not the right thing, but probably to keep
Yeah,
yourself motivated, that's something that keeps you going. So I like that
yeah,
idea.
that's what I thought. I was like, I think I had one on The Economist. You could also do like some sessions, but there were only like I think three, and you could
Okay.
only do them on specific topics, right? So I did one session on like strategy, and I remember telling this lady like, yeah, but I had this 550 once, and she was like, yeah, but it was just one score out of I think four or something, and like trying to tell me, this is not telling you everything about your level. I was like, no, but I had this 550. I just didn't want to let it go.
So that, that,
So
that that's nice. In the hindsight, yeah, that kept you motivated and going. So that was good, good, good. So what
yeah,
changed? Like what changed after that 580? Like how did you go about your prep? Like what led to this 710 overall in that
I
regard?
think like at the point where I was about to stop, I think one thing that was very hard for me for GMAT was to get an idea of what I need to know. Like basically, of course, you need to know like all these topics, but for me, it was very hard to understand like if I have issues with one question, like can I let this kind of question go and just accept that I can't do it? Or like how do I approach this? Because for me at this point, I had so little knowledge in a way about like how the algorithm works and everything that for me every question was equally important basically, and that made it just super hard to study because like when you make one mistake you're like, oh my god, if I get this, I will never get to my score. And
Mhm.
that's why I realized, okay, I need someone who knows my struggle. And also like for me, I had my scores were fluctuating on an like insane
Mhm.
amount, like by 100 points sometimes.
Mhm.
So that's why I needed someone to make me understand like why is it fluctuating, And what is my issue? Because I could do a lot of tough questions, probably because I did Manhattan so early on, but a lot of the easy ones, like I had no idea what was going on. And this was actually a struggle I kept basically until the end, that I need to really like focus on the easy questions and make sure that my calculation is on point. Because sometimes with the harder ones, the calculation is only like a side part, but like with the easy ones, you really need to have this calculation right. And this is where I struggled. And that's probably also why it fluctuated so much, because when I got the easy ones right, then I could kind of build up on it. But sometimes I failed in like the first questions, and then I was basically done. Then like my score was already super, like there was also a downward spiral. I think one thing also, like I stopped putting so much pressure on like getting the test right. I also had a bit of a fear of mocks, I would say, at some point. Then I didn't want to do mocks anymore, because I was like, okay, if I get a bad mock again, I will be
It'll
so
demotivate you
sad.
once again.
Yeah, totally. So I think then at some point I kind of switched my mindset of just accepting like I'm continuing in this, I'm studying this, and like it will turn out eventually. And not like it doesn't have to be, you know, until day X or day Y. I will just continue, and yeah, that's
Keep
basically
fighting
how it
and keep
happened.
going through it, and
Yeah.
until I get there, like I'll just keep fighting for it.
Yeah,
That's great.
exactly. Because this kind of mindset of like, I want this score and I want this split basically is where I had a lot of issues. Because then whilst I was doing a mock and I made like a mistake, even though I didn't want to think about it, I couldn't let it go. I was like, okay, but what about this previous question? I did it wrong. And how is this question now? Is it easy or is it hard? And then I think there was this one time when Sakib told me it could actually happen that even if you're doing everything correct, you sometimes just get an easy question thrown in. And that really helped me, because at this point, then I just stopped thinking about it. I was like, okay, you will never know which level you are. Just continue and stop, have any emotions, like nothing. Just continue and do it like a robot, basically.
No, true. And trust me, like understanding the GMAT algorithm itself is a challenge, because it's one of the most complex algorithms. Like the test itself is complex, but even the way they give questions and all of that is really, really complex to understand. And what I've seen in the past is that people who don't understand it sometimes end up making a lot of strategic mistakes, let me put it that way. So one
Yeah.
that you talked about, that continuing to think about what happened in the previous question actually
Yeah.
off your focus from the current question, and that leads to the downward spiral. so so
Exactly.
so great learning. So with respect to the strategic change in the thought process, you focus more on even getting the weak questions right, or easy
Mm-hmm.
questions right, let's say. But
Mm-hmm.
what was your prep strategy? Like how did you change your prep strategy from that 580 onwards to now? Like did any change happen, or was it the same thing that you were doing overall?
I think it changed a bit. Like I was way more focusing on like super basic stuff. I think also what I didn't realize is like the Austrian education is just so different. Like we don't have any test like this. It does not work this way. So I think I just kind of started super basic and just did divisions and like percentage calculation, all this kind of stuff that we would never do in school. I mean, it
Okay.
might be different for schools, of course, but like I never did this and I never did it manually. So super basic stuff, but I made sure that like if a question comes on to these kind of questions, like I will be set, like I will be not like worrying about, oh gosh, now I have to divide this by something. And I mean, I did struggle until the end, but I got better and better at this. And then also I think for me it was also a guidance thing. Like I would do the program and Sakib would tell me, okay, like these are kind of mistakes you can't do. And then maybe for some harder ones, he was like, yeah, review this, but like the easier ones, you need to get these right. There is no question about it. Like you have to do this. And this was super important for me because it kind of shifted my focus on something where I'm like, okay, this is really important and not like learn everything basically. So that
Mhm.
was the main thing for me.
So if I understand correctly, your prep was divided into two parts. You were learning something online from the GMATWest portal, and then you were having this private tutoring sessions with Shakib
Mhm.
to start with.
Yeah.
So like how was the learning from the online course and different from a private tutoring, and like what worked for you in both the cases? What are the pros and cons that you found overall?
I mean, for me, the one thing, like in the beginning, studying with like no course was just not working at all. And then once I started doing a course, I already knew in the beginning I needed someone to guide me a bit, but the courses I knew were just super, super expensive, and there was just no way of like doing this. So I thought, okay, I can do it by myself. I mean, in hindsight, I could have probably just spent the money right away and not like stretch it over this period of time. But
Mhm.
and then for this course, what kept it so different for me was like I'm doing the stuff online, already having the pressure also, which is funny. I already had the pressure whilst doing it because I knew somebody would look at it, right? So if I would do it, I would know, like Saqib would tell me, okay, why did you do this mistake? So I already had a bit of pressure whilst doing questions, because sometimes, you know, if you do questions by yourself, it's a bit like, oh, you know, didn't go so well, whatever. So while I was doing it, I already had a bit of pressure. And then after that, really analyzing it and like finding my blind spots basically was super important. Like only doing a course by itself for my situation wouldn't have worked, in my opinion, because my blind spots were so diverse, right? There were some like hard things I could do for whatever reason, and then easy things I couldn't do. So for me, it was super important to have somebody look at what I've done and then say, okay, you need to focus on this more because this will get you to your target score.
Okay. So basically, the uh, that, like, let's say the blind spot that you're talking about, where you're getting the easy
Mm,
questions wrong and the hard questions right, you're not able to understand exactly what is the mistake that you are making over there. Why is this
yeah,
really happening? And that
yeah,
discussion with Shakib helped you understand those things and improve on those areas overall. Okay. Okay.
definitely. Yeah.
And how did you structure your prep? So you talked about learning percentages and divisibility, but was there a structure that you followed in terms of going about the various aspects of quant and the various aspects of verbal as well? Like, was there a structure, or you were just doing topics randomly?
Well, mainly just doing topics. I would say, like, especially in the beginning, my focus was mainly on quant because my quant was just, I mean, low in terms of the percentiles. But yeah, that's why I really needed to focus on quant a lot.
Mhm.
And then verbal, I just kind of did like a couple of questions each day. And yeah, quant, I really made sure to have a combination of doing those examples, but also, especially in the end, I realized about reviewing questions. Like in the beginning, I was very focused on doing new questions all the time.
Mhm.
And then once I realized how beneficial like doing the same questions over again is, yeah, I really loved it because you could really see how you're improving. It's like, I mean, it's like if you're doing a workout, right? If you do the
Mm.
same stuff over again, you can see yourself improving, and that also keeps you motivated and keeps you going. Because the next time you will remember this and you will do it better. So yeah, I think that was super important for me in the beginning. I mean, in total, I did so many different questions, and that didn't necessarily help me. It was more like of understanding how does this question work, and like what is the process. I think that's also one key thing for me in the end. Like once I like the end studying was very focused of having like a specific way of doing questions. Like once a question came up, I kind of intuitively did what I had to do. It was not like, ooh, how does this work? Or,
Mm.
ooh, these are the tough ones. There was no thinking in that sense. It was just like,
It
okay,
was all
this is what I'm
natural to
trying
you, like
to
coming
do.
in.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just like, okay, let's do this now. Yeah.
No, I can totally understand that. So, because sometimes when you do the same question second time, you get a little, you're actually able to see what is happening behind the scenes also, because someone who
Yeah.
has created the question keeping certain things in their mind, and when you look
Yeah.
at it again, you're probably get into the creator's mind of what he has been trying to play with, and you kind of get that learning, and that's probably where your that basic instinct of approaching it in a certain way comes into picture. So Maria, you would have definitely seen a significant improvement in timing as well, like because of this instinct of yours to approach it in a certain way.
Yeah, definitely. Like in increasing timing was also quite hard for me in the beginning because it just took me some time to do these kind of questions. But then once you review questions a lot, as you said, you kind of get an idea of the thinking and what to watch out for also. Like for me, one big thing I always needed to do in the end is like do one last check of did I follow the thought process, because sometimes when you go through the questions, it's like a bit quick and a bit like, ooh, okay, I'm doing it. So in the end, like taking this like half a second of being like, what did I do here? Did I miss something? No, okay, fine. And then be sure of what you've done. Because what also happened a lot to me actually is that I started right in the beginning, and then I didn't trust my process and I went back again and then, started over again. So I lost a lot of time for this. So it was two things, like in the beginning, take your time, choose a process, follow it, and in the end, take your time, check it, and then that's it basically.
So in this regard, like with respect to the like process part, checking the process which you have followed, did the solutions in the concept booster files help you out? Like at GMAT, was like we actually worked a lot. In fact, you would have seen Shakib's voice in all those video solutions out there. So how was the solutions in with respect to your review process, basically?
I liked it. I like it. I think having the solutions by side even helps you if you know the question, because then you kind of get an idea on how to solve a question also a different way, maybe, which helps you with new questions then also. And for me also, what was kind of good is especially now when you included the concept solidifier questions, because these were kind of a good test for me, especially on the easy ones, right? Since I had issues with the easy ones, it was like, okay, if I'm failing here, then I really need to review this. Like I really need to understand why I'm making these errors. And then also it's again like a confidence thing. If you've done this for so long and you struggle with your confidence, it's like, okay, these ones are fine. Let's get on to the real questions now. And then also the concept booster files were kind of good because they were challenging questions, but not like too many. If there would have been like 30 super challenging questions, it might have been too much, but it was a good amount. Yeah, it was like, okay, there are some challenges, like let's get on to them. And then also with the video explanation, oh, okay, this is how it works. But it was not like too many questions where like, oh God, I will never learn this.
So after going through the concept boosters, when you get to the practice quiz, was that easy, or like there also you found it a little challenging?
That depends. I think there were some where I still found it challenging.
Okay.
And some where I kind of knew what I was doing, I think. And also it's a kind of a good practice then also for the real test, because it's like, okay, if a concept comes, if this concept comes and then comes up, then will you be able to do practice questions? And then also, on these different levels. So it was a good practice. And also I found from the questions I've seen, like the questions from your course are very good in terms of the difficulty level, at least from what I've experienced, because I felt like some questions were a bit too far off, maybe too difficult or too easy, or a bit too different maybe. But with your questions, like I felt more confident in doing the real one, because like in my opinion, maybe because it's my weakness, but I always felt like the quant in the real test is harder than the mocks they have online. So that's why I always felt like, okay, maybe I got a good mock, but I don't know if I can do this in the real one. But then when I did your questions, I kind of got a good feeling of which level I'm at.
Great, that's great to hear. Shakib has put in a lot of effort for every single quant question. I know.
Yeah, I told him too, like during this process, I was like, okay, this is good. I can work with this. I think this is spot on.
Great. Definitely. It's very difficult to actually create something which is close to the GMAT, and then that's something which a lot of students struggle with. So great to hear that was really helpful for you. What about like tough topics like combinatorics and all, like coordinate geometry? People get jitters when they do these topics. How did you tackle these topics overall? Like,
I mean, for these, I feel like they just look super weird in the beginning, but then once you've done them a couple of times, they are, at least in my opinion, like for me, not being good at calculations, these are actually quite easy because it's always the same thing. Like you have this code, you put in like the numbers, and it's like, okay, the first one has all the options, then one less, one less. It's like basically the same thing all the time. So in the beginning, it looks super weird, and it's kind of unnatural, I would say. For me, it was also, we didn't do that kind of stuff in school at all. So I was a bit like, okay, this is going to be interesting because I have no idea about this. But then once I've kind of, what I also did, like when I did questions wrong, I not only did an error log, of course, that I also did, but this I used mainly for verbal, I would say. For quant, I even wrote down questions. Like I had this booklet where I wrote down questions where I'm like, okay, this is important. Like I need to know this. I didn't write all the ones I got wrong, but if I felt like, okay, this is one that, you know, during the test I will fail and it will be important. I wrote them down, and I feel like for these like combinatorics and probability things, it's good to do this because you can see then very well that it just repeats itself. It's very much the same thing. Like sometimes the coin, you know, flips whatever 2 times, sometimes 4 times, but it ends up being the very much the same thing. So yeah.
I completely agree. These question types are actually very, very logical. If you kind of understand what's the pattern being tested, they all look very similar to you. And there's those
Yeah.
specific questions that some question types which will make you struggle a little. So good that you noted that down and were reviewing it constantly. So that was helpful. So according to you, it's like a mental block that people have that they have to
Yeah.
overcome. They just need to learn the right method to solve these questions, and they are not really as difficult as it seems to be overall. Okay, great,
I
great,
agree.
great to hear that. So, quant, I think we talked a lot, learned about a lot from you about, and it's a great improvement. Like honestly speaking, from verb like quant 29 to you got a 47 in that
Yeah.
710 attempt, right? Yeah, so that's a great improvement. Now, what about verbal? Like in verbal, also you improved from verbal 23 to verbal 40. That's also another 17 points, a huge jump.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, for verbal, I think it was especially in the beginning weird for me to find out like how does this work? Because we did at university we did something similar in our English courses, but then in the end it was still super different. Like I never thought how different GMAT would be in terms of like how they test stuff, because it looks so similar. Yeah, you have the sentence correction, and we also had sentence correction in university. So I thought, okay, I mean, this is gonna
it's
be
just the
fine.
same.
Yeah. So yeah, then once I did it, I was super disappointed on. I mean, I don't want to say how badly I did because it really depends on the perspective and what you're targeting. But I was super disappointed because I thought so highly of myself in the beginning, and so it was mainly getting familiar with like what do they look for, how are they testing this, and what is it that I don't know that maybe my university didn't focus on, because for my university it was more like basic grammar things in sentence correction,
You learn
and
the
maybe
rules and then
sometimes
just the exceptions to those rules, and then just
exactly.
yeah, just go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah, and I yeah I was quite good at them basically. So I thought it's gonna be fun. So learning how the test works was a big thing for me. Luckily, I was quite good in critical reasoning, so I never focused much on that. I watched one video on YouTube actually that was quite good for me that explained a bit how it works, and after that I was pretty much set. But sentence correction and reading, I was pretty bad. And for reading, I in the end found specifically why I was bad. It was because I did not have like a set, and maybe also for sentence correction, a similar issue. I did not have this fixed approach, right?
Okay.
The question, I didn't like attack the question attacked me basically. So something came up and I was like, whoa, whoa,
That
whoa,
was a
what
nice
is
way to put it across.
yeah. Yeah. I was like, okay, what is this here? So yeah, I learned to really get like an approach, like a fixed approach. And also Sunita told me like you need to learn to do the same thing every time. And that was hard for me because in my opinion it was so different, right? You get a text like this or you get a text like this. How can you do the same thing? And yeah, but in the end I did. I was very and this was also some like I had some sentences in my mind where I was like, okay, during the test telling myself, you need to do this, you need to do this, before the test mainly. And one of this was like, okay, sentence correction, you will go through a fixed approach and you will look at these
What is this
questions.
fixed approach that you're talking about? Like you haven't
Um,
adopted the approach, but what is this approach and how is it different from what you learned in university? Let's put it this way.
well, I think it depends. It depends on what your issue is with the questions. But my issue was like, did I understand the sentence really the way it is written there? Because for me, I actually sometimes tended to correct the issues that were in the sentence, if you know what I mean. Like I was reading it, and in my mind, I was kind of like already putting it in the right way. And I was like, yeah, okay, but you can say it that way. That's fine, you know? Like it's as if you would be checking a sentence from, you know,
Logic.
somebody you don't want to hurt. So it's like, oh yeah, it's fine. You can put it that way, basically.
Okay.
So I was reading it in a weird way, and then sometimes too fast. Also, I was
Okay.
very much like, okay, let's get this over with. You know, it's verbal.
Mhm.
We don't have that much time. And for reading, especially, like the main thing in reading I changed was I read super slow. Like
Mhm.
the time I took for reading was I don't remember specifically, but it was like probably too much, but I needed it. Like for
Mhm.
critical reasoning, I could be fast. And I think that's why it's also so personal. I could be fast in critical reasoning. I was quite sure of what I was doing.
Mhm.
But reading, I really had to take this time and read this and understand it the way it's supposed to be understood and go through this super slow. And then the questions were quite quick. Like I could tell them right away which was wrong. And yeah, so sentence correction, I would say, of course, learning the rules, of course, that's like the base,
Mhm.
but then also find the way you are reading it, basically, and why is this not a good way to approach it. And for me, it was like, oh yeah, I found this error here. And then also what I also did a lot of time is this, like, I'm not sure what it's called, like when you just look at the errors and not really like read the sentences again. I think
Mhm.
there's a specific term for this. So I did this a lot. So really like taking the time, but yeah, you will get fast over time, of course, like taking the time, not meaning sitting 5 minutes for a sentence correction, but yeah.
Right, so you're saying that give yourself the like do the first read really well, give yourself the time to do that so that you don't
Mhm.
have to come back to the question again. Like you save time on
Yeah.
the option analysis, and that's what you were doing for verbal. Okay.
Yeah, and getting to know yourself and what the way you are approaching things and why this might be a good approach or not a good approach, like for me being too fast, for example.
Okay. And how many sessions you did with Sunita for verbal? Like you, I guess took about 10, 8, 9, 10 sessions around that, right?
I think so. I think I did 10 each, or did I 5? No, I did 10 each, yeah.
Okay, 10 for verbal and 10
Yeah.
for con. So approximately you spend almost equal amount of effort on both the areas. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Great.
yeah.
Great.
Well, in the end, yes. In the beginning, I only did quant.
No, no, no. That is see that is something which happens because if you don't have a baseline to just know where you stand, sometimes you end up losing focus on the right thing. So it
Yeah,
can happen. It can happen, and especially if you
definitely.
have not looked at the test as well. Like you have not taken the test, you don't really know what kind of questions will come your way. So those things happen.
Yeah.
So what about question practice? Like if you have to recommend someone to practice questions, like what resource will you recommend them to practice from? What is the pattern or the resource, like both the things that you will recommend them?
Mm. I think like also look at the way that you have been studying up until now, whether it was in school or maybe university. And for me, I should have listened to my gut feeling in the beginning because I knew I needed some guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought I can do it without. It will be fine. And if I would have like listened to myself in the beginning, maybe it would have turned out a bit differently in terms of like not taking up so much time. But for me, this combination of like doing your course and having this guidance by side worked out super well. And for the main reason being that also I didn't, and that's probably also why I didn't approach somebody to do like this one-on-one tutoring, because I felt like I also didn't need someone like being there all the time. You know what I mean? Like I can do some
Mm-hmm.
stuff by myself and get the guidance, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need someone like sitting next to me and doing
Hand
if he
hold
needs
you for
time too.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you need that, that's fine too. Then like listen to yourself and be like, okay, I need this. I need someone to sit there with me and do this question. Then that's fine too. But for me, I was like, no, I don't need tutoring. I can do this by myself. But I knew I needed guidance. So that's why your course was kind of the best of both worlds for me, because I could do these questions by myself, think about it, give it some time, give it some thought myself, but then also have someone who really knows this stuff, like look at what I've done basically and say like, oh Maria, this one is really not that good.
No, when we were actually, before we started GMAT Wiz, when you looked at the industry, how it operated, what we saw was that there were this online courses who were doing a good job with that. And then there were private tutors who used to just teach basic concepts to students, and they used to give them random content, as in the official guide or some other material, which they have not created themselves to solve questions. And the thing that we heard was that in those sessions, what happened is the students are not able to generate much value out of the time they are investing on their own, because they don't see a commonality between the approach. So when we started, we came up with this idea that okay, let's create a hybrid engine where the online course talks about the same methods, the students focus their learning from the online course primarily, and then the tutoring sessions are just to support the students for advanced questions or the mistakes basically that they're making, so that they can move ahead in their learning curve. So yeah.
Yeah. And also like the way your course is structured, it gives also some kind of flexibility. Because for me also, having done a lot of work already, maybe there were some areas where we didn't need so much focus on. So then Saqib said, let's do rather another session on word problems, because I see you have some issues there, instead of, for example, doing combinatorics where I just needed to repeat it and like remind myself, oh, what is this type of question that I need to remember. So I think that's also the kind of flexibility that it gives you of seeing where your issues lie, and then really make use of these hours that you have basically.
That's great to hear. So what about the other areas of the GMATWIS platform? Like, how did you find GMATWIS compared to the other resources? Let me put it that way, like that you used earlier. Let's say any differences
So
that
I
come to your
think
mind? Yeah.
yeah, I think like one thing was the level, the difficulty level of the questions. That was like super important for me, because after I failed so many times, I was also nervous to get the wrong impression again, right? Remember, I was always like looking at this 550. So then I was nervous, like, what is my real level now? And am I able to do these type of questions? So that was something that was super important to me, to have this level of questions that I can trust basically. And that I found quite different. And then, yeah, I would say again, like this combination of having someone to look at your stuff is super important to me. And learning by book, I think it's super individual. Like, for example, I also did at some point the verbal course for eGMAT. And I think it can work and I mean, apparently it has worked for a lot of people. But for me, again, like just going through this material was just not enough, even though it's quite well made with, you know, all these solutions and everything. But I needed someone to tell me, Maria, read this to me. And then I'm reading it and they're like, okay, this is way too fast. Like, do you even know what you've read right now? So I think it's super personal preference. But for me, like those two things, having the difficulty level and also having someone to spot the errors that you're making, that you will probably not be able to spot yourself. At least I couldn't spot them myself. Like, I never thought I was reading too fast. I thought you need to read that fast to finish this basically. So yeah, that's why it was quite unique to me.
No, it really helps when actually there's someone who can actually see how you're solving questions, because when you're going and I also feel this, that when you're going through the course, it's up to you what you understand out of it. Obviously there's some communication that we want to communicate, but at the end also it is about what you understand. And if there is a gap between the two, sometimes it is difficult for you to understand that there is a gap that exists. No one wants to go on the wrong direction or work on the wrong direction. So in the tutoring sessions, that helps in understanding what is the deviation from the approach, and probably that a little bit of that push itself can actually help you course correct. So,
Yeah.
so
And also one thing I should definitely mention is, like, for me, because it was at that point where I was about to give up, I was also in a way worrying, like, if I even can do this, right? There is like a specific point where you're not sure, okay, maybe there is just no way I can reach that target score. And I was really worried about this. So having someone know what you're doing, and also being able to give you feedback was super, super important to me. Like when Saqib was telling me, like, you can do this, I've seen you do this a couple of times, I don't know why you're messing up right now, like review it. That was super good for me, because there was somebody else also like seeing my level and like knowing I
That
can
trust
do
in
it.
you, that yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, I mean, he knows his stuff. If he says I can do it, then I should be
No,
fine.
he used to tell me all the time that Maria is super good. I know that she will reach there. It's just that there's just little bit of errors that she makes all the time. She does well on the hard ones, and then suddenly she will make a silly mistake in an easy question and get it wrong. So
It was also so funny because he was also so into it. And then like I had this gap where I stopped at when I got the 640 at some point. Then I stopped studying for a while because yeah, I was in this phase of like, okay, doing a MIM, doing an MBA, and then once I thought, okay, I will start over again, I will reach for that 700. My boyfriend was also like, no, you need to study with Saqib again. I can tell he's very into it, you know, and he's just like, he's not letting you go until you have this done. I was like, okay, I agree.
no, he has been all positive about you. Like he works with many students. So he tells me about multiple people, but he was always like, yeah, Maria is definitely gonna get there. It's just about time, like for sure. And when he shared that message, I remember in the team meeting, like he shared us that today Maria scored a 710. I was like, oh great, this is a great news. Like you're waiting for it to
Yeah.
happen.
No,
Great.
that was super important to me.
So did that break help, like you when you took that pause? Because sometimes when I interact with people who have been in this GMAT prep for quite some time, I recommend them to take a break, because sometimes when you're too
Yeah.
close to it, also that kind of does not work in your favor. So like, did that break
Mm.
help you in assessing
I
yourself?
think so. Yes, I think it helped mainly also that I changed my mindset a bit in terms of not giving it so much pressure anymore. Because before that, like also everybody at work knew I was studying GMAT, and you know also everybody in my personal life. Whenever I couldn't do something, I was like, yeah, sorry, I'm studying today, you know. And
Hmm.
I just stopped it at some point. Like when I did it again and I was reaching for the 700, I was like, okay, this is not going to work if I feel like everybody's watching me doing it, basically. So I didn't talk about it at work anymore. Like this topic was basically done. And then, of course, like close friends, of course, knew, but I didn't focus on like telling everybody and making it a big deal anymore. I did it for myself in the end. And also, when I booked the appointment, I didn't like tell too many people. Of course, very close friends maybe, but and family. But apart from that, I tried to like really take it the calm way now, because before I was just super, it was in a way good because I was super into it and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this and GMAT, this big deal. But that also put a lot of pressure on me, and that also kind of was a bit of an issue, because then again, like when I did mocks or when I did also the exam, I was like, okay, everybody knows now I'm sitting here, and you feel like, okay, if I come out with
There are
this
like
and it's
five more
just
people waiting to hear your score from you.
yeah, I was like opening up my phone, all these text messages, how did it go, how did it go? And I was like, well, it didn't go too well. So, and that, yeah, this I really stopped. Like I went in there, I did it for me. And also the last time I did it, I didn't go in there with the mindset that super open to doing it again. I was like, okay, if I do it one more time or maybe even two more times, it's fine. Like this is not gonna be like the end of the world if it turns out badly today. And that was super important because I was quite calm whilst doing it. I was just going through my stuff, and I was not nervous.
That's very, very important. In fact, being yourself is the most important tip that probably you're answering my questions before I come to them. So I was actually going to ask you the
Sorry.
next, like, no, that's not, that's okay. That the objective is to help people understand those questions. My next question was about actually the last few day tips that you would probably give. But when people ask me the same question, I tell them all the time that you just have to be yourself. So probably distance
Yeah.
yourself from GMAT, be natural, be calm, and that's the best you can do. Like if you think that okay, everything depends on this test, how you perform in this test, probably you're going to screw up, because that pressure will kill you unnecessarily. So be calm. I remember my attempt. I went into the test center. I was like, Shakib is my old friend, so I was speaking to Shakib all the way, and just chit chatting around all the things. And I saw like five more people were there at the center. One of them had the OG with him. Another guy had a Manhattan book with him, and they were studying till the very last moment. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. So what is happening? Like, you have studied probably for a month, 6 months, whatever. What is gonna change in the next 5 minutes? Like,
Yeah, I agree. But I feel like that's also one thing that was super hard for me to understand, that how unique your GMAT journey can be, right? You see all
Hmm.
these stories of like success stories, but it can be so different for you, and the way, because it also depends on what have you learned or seen so far, and how do you work. Like, for example, I'm not someone who likes these kind of, brain teasers, or like, these kind of tricks. There are people that are super into it. They're like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
cool, I can solve like it's like a quiz for them, and it's great.
Hmm.
I hate that kind of stuff, and I think that's it's all these little things that add up, and that's why you can never compare your journey to someone else's and feel like, oh, they got it so much. I know so many people that got it way faster, and that's fine too. Like, it worked out for them this way, it worked out for me a different way, and yeah, just don't compare yourself too much. It can be super unique.
Yeah, true. What matters in the end is where you reach. Basically, that's what matters.
Mm,
Like, the journey can be different for everyone, because everyone has their own weaknesses, strengths. So that is definitely different. What is important is you understand who you are as an individual. What is that you need to improve upon, and then act upon it in the right manner.
yeah,
So I
exactly.
think that's what the biggest thing. Great, Maria. This is good. Now I'm pretty sure that with GMAT done and dusted, that's a big rock of your mind. Like, you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it anymore.
It's super weird. It's still weird. And
I
sometimes on the weekend, sitting there like, okay, I can just chill here now. Okay, that's
I'll tell you, I was speaking to this one student of mine. So this guy recently scored a 730. So he was
wow.
I was having a word with him, and he was saying, now I feel I have a big void in my life. I used to study for the GMAT. Every time I used to come back from to home after office, it was like, okay, I have to sit for 3 hours and study for GMAT. Now I have nothing to do. So what do I do now? Tell me, Piyush, what should I do now?
That's funny, because that also kind of brings me back to the unique journey kind of thing. Because my boyfriend was like, yeah, in the end, when he was studying, it was such a routine that when he was done, he was missing it. And I always thought, okay, wow, like it's going to be similar for me. I need to get into this like super routine, and I'm going to like it in the end. I never liked it. Like, I never liked it till the end. I hated it. And then once it was over, I did not miss it. Like, I think it's just like, for everybody, it's just different. There's no void now, and I'm I'm happy
Good.
with the time I have left. So yeah, I think you always listen to how it is for somebody else, but it might be super different for you.
No, that's good. That's good. Now, like you can focus on your like professional career, get some experience, and then
Definitely.
after a couple of years, like, you can apply. And in this time, you can focus on building unique experiences, building up a profile around it, and
Exactly.
target some of the best schools. I guess your boyfriend studied from INSEAD, if I'm not wrong. Like
Yeah.
Shakib told me earlier. Yeah. So you are aiming for the
Yeah.
same, or like something in US, or yet to decide?
Let's see. No, definitely in Europe. I would like to do it in Europe, and then for schools, let's see what I can. Of course, there are these dream schools, and I really want to make use of the time now to
Hmm. Work on your
freshen up
profile.
my profile a little bit, like take more time to do my extracurriculars, because I feel like during this study time, this always has to get into the back seat basically. So I feel like now I can really do what I like to do, and enjoy to do, and really have some kind of side projects that I like. And then yeah, let's see which schools are accepting me. But yeah, of course there are these top schools that everybody wants to go to. So let's see.
I know. I was planning to do a second MBA at one point of time, and INSEAD is
Really?
always at the yeah. In fact, that was the one of the reasons I gave GMAT. So, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
at that point of time, it was like a confusion between whether I should like do a second MBA or should I do like on GMAT front. I was always thinking about improving the way students learn. So there was this
Yeah.
conflict which was there in my mind, and I was like, okay, let's do one thing. Let's take the GMAT. Let's see what I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
took the GMAT. I called just randomly. Like I booked a date for 1 month later, and during that entire 1 month, for first 3 weeks, I didn't even touch anything. Like I didn't study at all.
Hmm.
Last 7 days, I just studied a little bit of SC. I revised all the rules, did a little bit of RC, and then geometry. So that was all. Like geometry was one area which I did not like at all in quant. So so I just did that and just went to the test center. And then and my journey is very unique also. So I just went to the test center without any worries. 7 days of prep, take it, done. Mm,
Wow, that's yeah, and that's what, again, like it's so different how everybody like why you do it and how you do it. It's just yeah,
true, true.
super funny to listen to those stories.
No, true. That's good. Yes, it was really great hearing your side of it. Like interacting with you. It's long time that was you. So all the best for the journey ahead. There are
Thank
miles
you.
to go, like lots to achieve. But the one thing which should stay is when pressure is off your mind, then you perform your best. So that is a very good
100%.
learning, which is important.
Yeah,
Good.
100%. Well, thank you, and I'm very glad we met each other because otherwise I might have stopped at the 580 that I got back then.
No, I think everyone has a role to play in everyone else's life. So all that's all
Yeah.
like in